Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody, and welcome to Pangolin, the Conservation Podcast, the show dedicated to exploring and amplifying the world's underappreciated conservation stories. The stories that inspire me, and I hope will inspire you too. I'm your host, Jack Baker, and today I am joined by the amazing Laura Young, who may be better known to some of you as Less Waste Laura. She's a climate activist passionate about protecting our oceans. And today, she's here to tell us all about a number of protests that will be going on all across the UK on the 23rd of April 2022. Organised by Surfers Against Sewage, these protests hope to secure a better future for our oceans. So I would really encourage you all to listen, to learn, and to get involved if you can. We also make sure to take the time to chat about some of the things you can do for our oceans beyond the protests, beyond April 23rd. And what inspired Laura to act for the ocean in the first place. It's an amazing story and she's had some great experiences, and it was an absolute pleasure to speak to her. So yes, without further ado, let's get started. Welcome back to the show. I am now joined by Laura Young, who is a climate activist, environmental scientist, sustainability educator, and environmental influencer, who some of you may better know by the name Less Waste Laura. So thank you so much for joining me today, Laura.
Hi, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. And today we're going to talk about all sorts of different topics. Primarily, we're going to focus on some events that are going on across the UK, I believe, on the 23rd of April. But before we chat a little bit about that, I give my guests a little bit of an introduction, but I think it's always better if you introduce yourself because you know yourself far better than I do. So could you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and, yeah, just introduce them to who you are and what it is that you do?
Sure. So yeah, I'm Laura. I live in Glasgow, up in Scotland. Well, I say up because I just assume everyone is down south. But yeah, I'm in
Mhm,
Glasgow, and I've lived here all my life except when I moved away for university. So I did
mhm,
my undergraduate in Dundee, and then I did a master's in Edinburgh. So I've lived in kind of different parts of Scotland, and I've always been interested
mhm.
in environmental stuff. So that's what I went to study. That's what I'm passionate about. That's where my hobbies lie. And yeah, I feel that's like how I got into all of this kind of stuff, sustainability and thinking about climate and the environment and waste and all that good stuff, hopefully. Um, and I
Mhm,
think I've been on a bit of a journey, like personally, but also, thinking about how we can
mhm.
take action more broadly as part of, bigger communities and stuff. But yeah, I mean, the introduction you gave me is a bit random, but it's because my day to day is a bit random. It looks really different, and I love being able to come
Mhm.
on and chat to people like you on podcasts like this or do loads of other different things. But yeah, I feel that's like a bit more of an introduction of some of the stuff that I do.
Yes, yes. I feel like in the conservation kind of sector and natural kind of world that we work in, you have to have all these multiple hats that you can
Yeah.
put on and off and be, I'm this some days, I'm that other days. I do this sometimes in the morning, but then in the afternoon I transition into a completely different thing. So yeah, that
Yeah.
I think it's a nice little sum up. And I did steal it from your website, so I feel like I no credit to me there. Uh, um, but yes, and nice to talk to a fellow Scot because I feel like
Yes.
actually you might be the first Scottish person I've had, aside from Jodie, who co-hosts one of my other podcasts, the first Scottish person I've actually had on since maybe season 1 or 2
That's
of them.
shocking.
Oh no,
That's
that's a
poor
lie.
show.
That is a Yeah, that's really bad actually. I've had English people who've moved to Scotland, which I think
Oh
is
yeah.
close enough because
Okay, close enough. Yeah.
they're here now. But yeah, but nice to be returning home with a
Yes.
yes. Hopefully, people. I mean, my Scottish accent is not that broad. Yours isn't either. But
No.
hopefully, we won't go really Scottish now. Uh, um, I've just remembered. Also, sorry, Katie McFarlane. Very Scottish name, very Scottish person who was on the podcast like 3 weeks ago. And I was like, as soon as I said that there wasn't anyone, I was like, that's wrong. There's someone. There's someone. And now I'm like, I'm very sorry, Katie. Go and check out Katie's podcast, Wee Blue Dot. But yes, Katie, I'm so sorry. I do remember you. Your episode was fantastic. It's my brain. We are recording this at 9 a.m. That is the reason I forgot. Okay. But yes, so yes, I think that was a nice, perfect little introduction to you, and some of the things that you've done. But something I wanted to kind of follow up on. I think the events that we're going to be talking about today are kind of all to do with Surfers Against Sewage and kind of protests about kind of ocean protection, kind of clearing up the oceans and kind of getting presumably government action on these things. But before we kind of get to talking about the events, I thought it was important to talk about why these events are happening and maybe your personal experience with it. I know that you've done a TED talk all about kind of kicking the plastic habit. Um, and so, yeah, could you tell us a little bit about maybe some of the issues that our oceans face and some of the things that you're particularly passionate about to do with that kind of area of conservation and protection of our natural world?
Yeah, I feel our oceans are just the main thing that we can look at often to kind of, I guess, measure the health of the world. Our oceans for the last, well, for many people, it might have been decades, but I feel particularly since Blue Planet, that is
Hmm.
the time that we really
Yeah.
started to think about, okay, our oceans are being impacted really heavily by
Hmm.
humans, by the way that we live our lives. And I think the reason oceans are so interesting to look at is because actually we don't live there, in the sense that we don't live inside the ocean. We might go swimming or we might live in a coastal region, but we actually don't live inside the oceans, yet we are having huge impacts on them. And that's everything from, massive amounts of plastic, whether that's plastic found on a beach or whether that's plastic floating around somewhere in the North Atlantic, thousands of miles from the next piece of land. That is levels of pollution, levels of chemicals that are man made or chemicals that come from, ships or from, I guess, what we're going to talk about later, but, the kind of like discharge of sewage or all these really nasty things, being found in the ocean. And that has a huge impact on the health of it. So, whether that's the quality of the water or whether that is impacting what actually does live there. So, well, I hate the word fish stocks because it's as if like it's the stock that we're going to eat, but like fish populations, communities, and then kind of beyond that, other aquatic life. So, seagrass, coral reefs, all these different things are being impacted by it. And so, I think it's a really good indicator of the planet's health. How are our oceans looking? Are we decreasing the amount of living stuff that's in there? Are we increasing the amount of pollution and junk that's floating around? And I think the reason I'm passionate about this is because, firstly, I'm just passionate about taking care of this planet, like full stop. I think we shouldn't be looking at it going, oh, it's looking a bit unhealthy, it doesn't look great. I think we've just got a responsibility to look after it. And that's both for the physical thing of the planet, but also the stuff that lives there. And I mean animals and people. So the animals, the fish, the lives that, are inside the ocean and the communities that live, next door to it, coastal regions all around the world. But also because I really think the ocean is something that should be enjoyed. And I mean,
Mhm.
fellow Scot, we are very lucky to have these like super remote coastal regions, the highlands and the islands. And almost they are like pristine. You can kind of go
Mhm.
swimming in the ocean up north and not really think too much about it. But
Mhm.
there are loads of areas across the UK, particularly close to where big populations live. So Glasgow, Edinburgh, and then of course, as soon as you go down south, I wouldn't
Mhm.
be caught dead swimming in the Thames River in London because it's just so polluted and it's just got so much junk in it. And it's not just, the Thames River that always gets picked on. It's all these different coastal regions around the UK that have, discharge of waste and discharge of sewage and stuff that's just polluting it. That also means we just can't enjoy. We can't enjoy
Mhm.
swimming around in a safe environment to enjoy nature because there are risks to human health. And so I guess there's all these different things that kind of encompass, like personally why I'm passionate, because I want to go and swim and enjoy nature,
Mhm.
but also because I care and I think we've got a responsibility to do it. But also because over the last few, I guess, decades now, 20,
Mhm.
30, 40 years, we've just seen this real deterioration of this big indicator of the planet's health.
Mhm. That's yeah. That's I feel like I asked you an impossible question there. I have a tendency to do this where I have a guest on and I go, "Tell us about all the problems about this
Yes,
issue," and I feel like somehow
in a
you
nutshell.
managed to sum it up really well in a nutshell, which is actually perfect. And yes, yes, brilliant. Well, not well. It's not brilliant, but it was a brilliant answer. And I think
Thank
it,
you.
yes, I think it, yes, summed up everything perfectly there. That this is a thing that I think it's so easy for us to sometimes forget about because it does seem removed. We don't live there. We go there on a day off, or we go there for a little
Yeah,
holiday or a break. Some of us maybe never go. If you live in the center of somewhere, you maybe never see
yeah,
the ocean. So it's one of these things that, yeah, it's easy to remove ourselves from, but so much life depends on it. So much can go wrong if the balance is shifted backwards and forward just a little bit. And so, yeah, I think that was the perfect summary to an impossible question. And yes, it was interesting to kind of hear a little bit more about kind of your passions about it specifically as well. And actually, that kind of reminded me of a question that I wanted to ask a little bit is that what was it that made you first want to, what was the maybe trigger point for you that made you think, this is what I need to act on? What the ocean, as we've said, faces all of these numerous threats. Which was it the one that really spoke to you and went, okay, now I need to change what I do?
mm. It actually happened on a beach, so that's quite relevant. But
Hmm.
I was in my final year of university actually, and if anyone has ever studied, whether it's at school, at uni, or you've just done like a
Hmm.
course somewhere, studied anything environmental, I don't know if you've had the same
Hmm.
feeling as me, but you kind of feel like, okay, I'm learning all of this stuff.
Hmm.
What am I supposed to do now? Like, what am I supposed to
Yeah.
do with all of this information? How am I supposed to not necessarily make a difference, save the world, but just how do I translate textbook into
Hmm.
action? And when I was in my final year of uni, so it was actually New Year's Day 2018, so I
Hmm.
was maybe like 3 months away from finishing, and we were spending New Year's away with some friends and family, and we were on this big walk along the east coast of Scotland. So it's a place called Ely, so it's
Hmm.
kind of near St Andrews, if that rings a bell for anyone.
Hmm.
And there was this, lovely beach. We are doing this big coastal walk on the 1st of January. And we were talking about, what's everyone's plans for the year, what's everyone's big goals, what's the kind of things we're looking forward to. And me personally, I was like, I have no idea, I'm graduating, but don't know what I'm doing next, not really sure. And when we started talking about New Year's resolutions, I was like, maybe I could just set myself a fun challenge, something to do. And the kind of background of this is, it's 2018, we'd had Blue Planet, that was all kind of in the back of our minds. I was really thinking about the environment. I was coming to the end of an environmental science degree. And as we were on this walk on the 1st of January, thinking about the
Hmm.
beautiful opportunities that we all have in this new year, we started to come across lots of like plastic and waste on this beach. And
Hmm.
the further you walk away from, human life in terms of, the kind of busy areas, and
Hmm.
still we were coming across plastic, litter, fishing gear, tires. And I just thought, I'm trying to have this epiphany moment of a beautiful new year. And I'm just constantly, finding bits of litter so much that you couldn't have even picked it up. You would have just been picking it up, picking it up, picking it up. And, we
Hmm.
weren't prepared for a litter pick that day. And that was when I sort of decided, that was my moment of, I just need to do something, because maybe that means I just need to pick up this litter, but also it's maybe I just need to, dedicate this year to trying to think about what it looks like to be different as an individual, make changes no matter how small, but also
Hmm.
push for change so
Yeah.
that people don't need to walk along a beach and find plastic, or whatever the other situations are, go
Hmm.
swimming and worry about what they're accidentally swallowing if they take a mouthful of water, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that to
Hmm.
me was my kind of moment of like, nah, this is enough. Like I need to do something. And that kind of kick started my journey to really, I guess being an activist is maybe what you could call it, but just,
Hmm.
yeah, trying to raise awareness for all these issues.
Hmm. And I think, yes, it's one of those things that it seems to have been a lot has happened for you over a very short space of time. And knowing the date now of the first thing in 2018 and that kind of revelation to now, for listeners who maybe don't know a lot about your background or maybe have just like you have worked with, I think it was, I was looking on your website yesterday and you have a page where you scroll down everyone you've worked with and all these things, and I was like, these are some major players and some major, like there was Boots, there was kind of it was Volkswagen, wasn't it, the car company?
Yeah, it
There
was
was
Volkswagen. I accidentally
Walter.
said Vauxhall in front of them, so that was great. When I was like, oh, not Vauxhall, sorry, Volkswagen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's on them. That's on them. That's Two similar
Yeah,
names. Two similar names.
exactly.
Slip of the tongue. But yeah, some like, and then you had your TED talk. You've had all of these things. You kind of this year received the Being Edinburgh Award for kind of your contributions to everything. So I feel like it just goes to show what a lot can be achieved in terms of kind of environmental kind of impact if you just put your mind to it and think, actually, I can make a difference here, and I can stand up and say something about something. I don't know. I feel like I've just listed off all your achievements, but do you have anything to add
It's
to
great.
that?
No, but I mean, I think what you said there at the end though is like when you put your mind to it, you also just don't know where you might end up going. I mean, so for example, I don't have a podcast, but you do, and you don't
Mhm,
know who might come across it, listen to an episode,
mhm,
and be impacted by something that's been said. Something might stick. And I think when people
mhm,
just decide, I care really deeply about this issue, I'm going to do whatever it is in my skill set to try and help. So for you, that's a podcast, that's podcasting, that's editing, that's being techie, that's getting guests on. For me, that looks a little bit different. It's working with businesses, it's working with, and I think when anyone just tries to put their mind to it, I think that really helps and kind of like helps us shape a movement and, really, but I definitely think, 4 years ago, I had no idea what I was doing. It started off as a New Year's
mhm,
resolution. It wasn't exactly ever going to become a job or ever going to become like the core bit of what I do. But now it very
mhm.
much is that. And it's kind of developed over time. But I will say when I won that award, I got an acceptance speech, which is so cringe because I'm like, I don't need to say anything, but they really wanted me to say something. So I actually went up and in front of all these students at the University of Edinburgh, just started listing off all the failures that I'd had while at university, all the knockbacks, all
Mhm,
the rejections, just to be like, let's make this a bit real though. Like, let's remember that, I
mhm.
might be getting this award now, but there was times where there was actually a time that I got rejected by Edinburgh to even get in. So I mentioned that and I said,
Ooh.
it took me 2 times to get in here. So
I bet all of the Edinburgh uni staff loved that. They didn't just all go, "Oh no,
yeah.
what's she doing? What's she doing?"
They were like, at least she's being real. At least she's being real.
No, I think that's the important thing to remember is that it's the little things, it's the kind of knockbacks and the things that make people, I think, always make people more interesting. If everything you did succeeded first time, you wouldn't have a kind of exciting, interesting story to follow. All the best stories out there kind of have these moments. The hero's arc, you have to be knocked back a few times before you
Yeah.
can kind of succeed fully. And I think, yeah, it's a good message to put out that anyone can make this difference, even if you feel like sometimes you're spinning this kind of wheel spinning, eventually you will
Mm.
kind of make an impact. And I think that leads perfectly onto what we are kind of actually kind of here to talk about mainly, which are these protests that are going on across the UK for Surfers Against Sewage on the 23rd of April. 2022. If you're listening to this next year, sorry you missed it, but I'm sure there'll be more going on. Um, um, but yes, so I wondered to get us started with kind of that conversation. Before I feel like I've listed the date 3 or 4 times now, but I'm going to keep doing it so people
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
Before I list it too many more times, could you tell us a little bit about Surfers Against Sewage and how you're involved and what their kind of message is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, Surfers Against Sewage are such a easy organization to explain because you're like, they are
yeah.
surfers who are against sewage. No, I mean, that's kind of how they were founded. A
Mhm,
group of people who loved the ocean for many different reasons, particularly recreational. Who doesn't? Well, I love swimming in the ocean and, trying to paddleboard and surf and all this. And, it was a group of people who came together to really try and raise awareness for the issues, all the stuff we were talking about earlier that is impacting our oceans, particularly here in the UK. And they don't just look at the ocean. They also realise that rivers connect to the ocean, and so they do a lot of
mhm,
stuff to do with kind of river quality and water quality and all of this kind of stuff. And they're across the UK. They
mhm,
work to raise awareness for a whole bunch of different kind of topics, whether it's plastic, sewage, river quality, and they do some really cool stuff. So they don't just try and raise awareness; they also, produce reports to really inform us on
mhm,
kind of what the situation is. They have lots of petitions. They've got lots of actions that people can take, and you can even, report instant incidents on their website,
mhm,
to kind of help shape what is actually happening to our waters. And as a kind of network, they've got people across the UK, lots of kind of regional volunteer reps who are trying to
mhm,
help raise awareness. and trying to help build up this stuff. And they've done some kind of cool things. They've done this cool action, which is the 1,000,000 mile beach clean, that they're, trying to kind of beach clean 1,000,000 miles and
Mhm.
stuff like that. But one of their main things, of course, in the name is sewage. And it's such a non-sexy topic. It's unbelievable. But actually it's really important. Basically this idea that we live on this
Mhm.
little island called the UK, we produce waste because we are humans and that's what happens. And when
Mhm.
our waste water is taken away and taken away by whatever the kind of company utility is, so up here in Scotland, it's Scottish Water, when it's taken away, one of the big things that's been happening is that it's being mismanaged. And one of the problems
Mhm.
that can often happen is sewage, basically raw sewage, what comes out of your toilet just gets put straight back into the environment, which is a grim
Mhm.
thought, absolutely grim. And this has real impacts both ecologically on the environments that that's put into. But of course, that has a huge impact then on if you have like bathing waters, places that people want to go swimming nearby, it just makes them really unsafe. And over the past few years, there's been
Mhm.
so many stories about, the statistics of like how many places are actually safe. And we just have so few compared to so many different countries around the world. And so
Mhm.
they're trying to raise awareness for this. And so the next big thing they're doing, which is April 23rd, there's the date again, is try and highlight this water quality issue. So they've got a big
Mhm.
report that's coming out to kind of coincide with it. So people can also go and check
Mhm.
out the report when it's live to kind of read,
Mhm.
I guess, the real story of what's happening. And then they're
Mhm.
wanting to just raise awareness. And they're doing these regional ones across the UK. So in
Mhm.
Scotland, the one that I'll be going to is Edinburgh, but of course there's some in different locations. And it's to kind of also tie a protest to a water utility. So in Scotland, the
Mhm.
Edinburgh protest is of course highlighting Scottish Water, who are the kind of utility that cover Scotland. And so I guess that's what they're trying to do this time round. And they've got demands, they've got demands for what they
Mhm.
want. They're wanting better targets for when it comes to sewage getting, especially untreated sewage being discharged. They want
Mhm.
better testing to really show what the true picture is. Because a lot of, charities and organizations do testing themselves, but they just don't have the capacity to do it, properly in terms of like full coverage. So they can only do it as much as they can as a charity. They also want nature to be restored, to really have minimal
Mhm.
impacts from things like sewage. And they want better investment into the infrastructure to really try and stop this from happening. And I
Mhm.
mean, I guess I'll sort of just end with like what they're on about, because I don't know if you saw this video, but this video sticks in mind and it's something that you should look up if you've not seen it. And it was
Mhm.
actually November last year. So context, just after COP26. So everyone's thinking about the environment and thinking about or at least everyone in my circle was. But November, just after this happened, there was a drone video that
Mhm.
was flying over Langstone Harbour in Hampshire. So November, drone flying over this area, and there was raw sewage being dumped at the moment that this drone flew over. But the reason I
Mhm.
say go and watch the video is because it's such a visual representation of like this stuff just spewing into this
Mhm.
huge area of water. And to me, I was like, okay, I
Mhm.
knew this was an issue, but actually seeing it makes you just want to bulk. I don't know if that's a Scottish word, makes you want to gag, makes you want to be sick. And I think for me, this is what they're wanting to do is like,
Mhm.
first of all, raise awareness to like, do people know that this is happening? And second of all, get people out there to raise awareness. There's a petition, there's a report. They want people to be getting involved for all these different reasons.
Mhm, mhm, and it's so important, and I think a lot of our listeners kind of maybe are very focused on kind of the conservation of nature or animals or whatever it is, and this doesn't just affect kind of, as you said, surfers against sewage. It doesn't just affect kind of the surfers and the recreational people and all
Yeah.
these things. And their goals are fantastic because they encompass the kind of nature and kind of the animals. Around the UK, we have an exceptionally fantastic amount of biodiversity beyond what I think most people expect. There's sharks, there's rays, there's kind of different
Yeah.
species of dolphin, mammals like seals. There's all sorts of incredible things out there. And yes, imagine if somebody came into your back garden and just started dumping kind of piles and
Yeah.
piles of unprocessed human waste. Like
Exactly.
it's not going to do good for your health, and it's definitely doesn't do good
No.
well for them. So if you love kind of the animal side and the nature side and kind of all of
Yeah.
these weird and wonderful sea creatures as well, all of this stuff really really matters and is really really important. And I think kind of showing having your voice heard in this way by protesting, I think is a good way to show when you get kind of these big kind of groups of people together. it shows that this matters to you, and kind of, yeah, I think it's an excellent way to do it. And I think especially, I don't know why this is on my mind, and I don't know if you've probably seen the clip of the kind of oil protester who was talking to, and I can't even remember his name now, the interviewer on Good Morning Britain,
Oh my
who's
gosh,
being talked
yes.
down to. And it's kind of like one of these things that kind of protesters are sometimes portrayed in this way, that actually kind of in this world right now, they're kind of, oh, they're an issue. But in fact, no, they're not an issue. They're the people who are making the difference. And I think that's why an event like this is so important, and kind of, yeah, really, really a good opportunity to kind of go and get your
Yeah.
voice heard. And yes, I don't know. In terms of kind of getting involved in the events, is there web pages? Could you give us a little bit of information, and like where can people go to find out more about them?
Yeah, great question. The general website that is the best
Hmm.
place to go to is
Hmm.
sas.org.uk, and you can go
Okay.
and find out. So that's Surfers Against Sewage, and there's a whole page dedicated to the protests. You can go and find the
Hmm.
one that's either closest to you, so the one that maybe you live in, the region you live
Hmm.
in. You can find out exactly what time it's on, exactly the starting location, how
Hmm.
you can turn up, and you can also get in touch with the regional volunteer. You know, you can, if you want to help, you can either just
Hmm.
turn up or you can offer to help or do whatever. And that would be the best place to go. And I think if you want to get involved, it can be a mixture. It can be going to the protest, being, I
Hmm.
always say, like a bum on a seat, you know, like someone who's just there
Hmm.
to kind of show the support in numbers, take a little, you know, placard, say a few chants, or maybe even just stand, share about it on social media, do something to just be a
Hmm.
little voice. And it doesn't have to be a daunting thing. And if you've never been to a protest before, also get in touch with the volunteer. Maybe say that you've never been before. Ask if, you
Hmm.
know, bring someone else along with you. Ask for some advice. Because I know that
Hmm.
not everyone's always been to a protest before. So that's what you can do. And if you can't make it to a protest, maybe it's too far from where you are, or maybe you're listening to this on the 24th of April and you think, oh, it was yesterday, you can still, you know, share all of this stuff on social media. So you can find
Hmm.
Surfers Against Sewage across social media. You can also find their little regional hubs. Lots of them have their own socials as well.
Hmm.
You can follow them, like their things, share them around, and obviously sign the petitions that they put out,
Hmm.
and also have a read of the report. And then maybe it might be something that you want to, you know, tell other people about, whether that is local councillors, MSPs, MPs. You know, there might be people around you that you think, actually, I just want to share that I've found this thing, I'm really passionate about it. What can we do maybe as a local area? How can you get your representatives who are paid to represent you in government and councils, how can you get them to help out? So there's a whole host of ways of doing
Hmm.
that. And it will really, really help no matter how you do your
Hmm.
activism. You know, that's all these things will help.
Yes, yes. I think it's fantastic, and it's advice that was kind of similarly. We talked to Catherine Gemmell from the Marine Conservation Society last year, and she was fantastic in kind of summarising that. Yeah, even if you kind of maybe you don't have the ability to go to this event, because of course it is quite soon. But if 23rd of April, if you're we're going to keep saying it. Try and go along if you can. But if you can, there's always kind of other ways to contribute. Even if you can do things like donate to charities, or you can write to your MP and be active in that way if that's something you find that you're
Yeah.
good at writing and you're passionate in that. And I think, yeah, and maybe an underlying tone of this whole thing, this whole podcast, is kind of do what you're good at and do what kind of makes
Yeah.
you happy. Because we kind of talked about how you kind of your journey with that, me doing the podcast, like all of these things. Be kind of raise your voice and make a difference in your own way. And I think, yeah, that's a strangely well tied together theme there.
Yeah,
But
there we
yes, I
go. We
think
did
that's a
well.
great idea. But yes, that's perfect. And I think, yeah, go and learn. And I would encourage everybody to go learn more, do what you can, turn up if you can. And if you can't go, tell your friends, family, maybe who live near one of
Yeah.
the protest sites, spread the word and help get that kind of message out to as many people as possible. Because I think it's often amazing when you might think kind of the only people who would be interested in your life would be the conservation people, but in fact that's not always the case. So talk to everyone in your life about these types of events, and some of them might be interested, even the ones who don't openly talk about it, because of course things like the Blue Planet have opened passions about the ocean to everyone. So yes, go and
And
do that.
it feels like everyone and their dog loves open water swimming now. So this is an issue
Yep.
that people, you know, want to get involved in. So definitely.
Yes. Yes, especially like I think given the last year and a half of like pandemic and everything, people I think so many people found kind of connection with nature and love of nature, and kind
Mm,
of found these joys for mental health and physical health, going to the beach and going and doing these things. And so even if it's for personal reasons, it doesn't have to be for animals
Yeah.
all the time. If you're feeling a
No.
little like, I want to protect the thing that I love because I love going there, go and do it. Anyone can go.
Yep.
Doesn't matter the motivations, you're all there for a common goal. So yeah, perfect. I wondered though, something that I wanted to talk about before I let you go is that, yes, of course, this is April 23rd, but if people miss this for whatever reason, I feel like there is no better person to give advice maybe about kind of what people can do outside of that thing that day. Than you, because Less Waste Laura is your whole kind of website. You're on Twitter, your Instagram, kind of promoting these kind of things. What could people do to protect our oceans and kind of help keep them clean and healthy beyond maybe April 23rd?
Yeah. So everything that we've mentioned, I'll just
Yep.
say go do that. But I think, there's loads of different things that we can do. And I think partly, so for example, I'm going to go away for Easter weekend and I'm going to
Mhm,
go up north to the Highlands of Scotland. And one of the things I always do when I'm away, this is the tiniest of actions, but one thing I always do is
mhm,
have a small bag in my pocket so that if I'm walking
mhm,
along and there's any litter, I just chuck it in. I just whip it in. I just put it
mhm,
in, collect it up, and I always just try and like leave everywhere that I go to a little bit cleaner than when I found it.
mhm,
And I try and do that, and kind of no matter what the circumstance is. But also, as individuals, we can just take lifestyle action, have
mhm,
conversations, find ways that we can try and improve practices. And that doesn't just need to be as an individual, it can be as a business, it can be looking at, the place that you work, the school that you go to, the apprenticeship that you're part of. How can you
mhm,
make a better impact through the way that you are doing things? And I think particularly thinking about the ocean, one of the, I guess, things to realize is that the ocean often starts in your house, on your street, the river that's at the bottom of your garden or in your local green space, and being able to protect it even as close to home. I live in Glasgow. My nearest beach, it's 20, 30 minutes drive. It's not close. But I recognise that there's a huge river that goes through the Clyde, and one of the tributaries is actually at the bottom of my garden. So actually recognising that, the stuff that we do in our day-to-day lives has a huge impact down the line. So
mhm,
I guess it's just about kind of thinking about all of those things. But I think if people are just interested in going on a journey with, I guess, what it looks like to live environmentally more
mhm,
generally, one of the things that you can do is just get plugged into groups online. Follow
mhm,
some of the organizations we've mentioned, whether it's individuals or charities. Find community groups, see what's going on, see what you can learn, find out ways to get involved. And there might just be something that sparks your interest and you think, oh, that's it, that's the group I want to join. I want to help them, I want to do something. Or maybe you just learn those and you're like, oh, I'm going to take up all these lifestyle actions, tell my neighbours, tell my friends, and then that's a good way to keep going.
mhm. Yeah, that's again perfect advice. I think it's it's really my one job is to boost the egos of all of my guests. If you can't tell, that's kind of I'm
Exactly.
good
And
at
mine
it.
is
Perfect.
boosted. I feel great.
But no, that's yeah, it's really good advice. I think all of these things, and I even like I hadn't thought about it like that before. With the kind of the ocean starts with the little kind of stream or river or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's a really clever and beautiful way to think about it, because yeah, it it's one of those strange things that kind of you think about it maybe. I think sometimes I'm guilty of kind of thinking of conservation as like there's issues that happen on land, there's issues that happen in rivers, there's issues that happen in the sea, there's issues, but it's important, yeah, to kind of recognize these overlaps in the places where they come together, and these transitional things affect more than just yes, yeah, and yeah, and especially in terms of kind of with litter, I think it's something that I talked about a lot when in one of my old jobs I used to work kind of with sea life quite a lot, and it was one of those things that I used to talk about. The thing that would really annoy me would be people, you'd walk upstairs after work and you'd go back into the car park of all these people who just learned about the ocean and kind of not littering and all these things, and there'd be litter all over the car park, and you go
Yeah.
dropping it there or doing these things disconnected from the, even though we're far away from the sea, this is still going to end up there. You've kind of missed the point of this. And so it's important
Yeah.
to really connect these things. And so yes, thank you very much, because now that's going to have me thinking all day about kind of what other things connect in strange ways that maybe I haven't
Yeah.
considered. um that's a perfect thing. Perfect piece of advice. I wondered kind of, it's a bit of a shorter episode today, but I think it's really important because we kind of have been trying to highlight the kind of main thing, which is this event happening on April 23rd, 2022.
April 23rd.
Go and get involved. But before we go, I kind of always like to ask, is there anywhere, if people want to keep up to date, learn more about your work, maybe learn more about Surfers Against Sewage, where can they go? What kind of things can they kind of look for to learn more about your work or Surfers Against Sewage?
Yeah, both of us, in terms of Surfers Against Sewage and me, exist online. And so you
Mhm,
can find all of our social medias with loads of links to cool articles and more actions and lifestyle things and education.
mhm,
So, Surfers Against Sewage or Less Waste Laura is where you can find us.
mhm.
And I guess that's, the best way to connect in is just follow along, see what's happening. And I do have a website as well. So, Surfers Against Sewage is sas.org.uk and mine is lesswastelaura.com. And on mine, I've got loads of stuff. Like if there's events coming up, I post about those. I've got a newsletter, all this kind of stuff, just for people if they're interested to get connected in and have a little daily dose of things that they can get involved with.
Yes, that's and it's an excellent website. It has all sorts of different things on there, so make sure and go and check it out and learn more about some of the other projects with them. Oh, now I'm getting myself confused.
No, that was the other
Volkswagen.
one. Volkswagen,
And
there
all
we go.
there you go, Volkswagen. And all the other projects. You can watch the TED Talk, which I think is fantastic. I watched it yesterday,
Thank
just to kind
you.
of do my little bit of research because I was like, I feel like I need. I'm really. It's any excuse to watch a TED Talk. Really, any excuse. I like
Oh,
to go on
yeah.
and watch them all. And it was fantastic. So go and watch that. There's some really good kind of. I really appreciate when people incorporate in talks a visual element as well as just the kind of chatting. And so
Yeah.
there's some really good and poignant visuals about plastic pollution, and how you can live more sustainably. So go and check those out as well. And yeah, I guess that kind of, it feels strange. Usually I'm rambling for at least another 45 minutes. So it's a nice short one for everyone today. But yes, I guess all that remains is for me to kind of say a massive thank you, Laura, for joining me. Thank you very, very much.
No, thank you for having me on and letting us share about all the stuff that's going on. It's been great. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And yes, for everyone else, I'll put the links to all those things down in the description for the episode. So just click down there and you'll be able to learn more about Laura and Surfers Against Sewage and all the events that are going on. I'll maybe even put a link to the TED Talk there so people have easy access to that as well. You'll also be able to find links to Pangolin, the conservation podcast, on social media down there as well. We're at Pangolin Podcast on everything. So you can find us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all that sort of stuff. And yes, you can subscribe to the podcast on wherever you're listening now. So please do that. Leave us a nice review if you're so inclined. And yes, April 23rd, 2022, make sure and get out there and have your voice heard. Yes, I've watched enough kind of reality shows where they're like, you haven't done this enough. I'm promoting
Yeah.
these things like to the top of my ability. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
It's great.
the judges will not be critiquing me for this kind of like, I'm getting the message out there. This is what I need to do. Uh, so, before I ramble on too much, though, another massive thank you to you, Laura. Thank you to everyone for listening. And until next time, goodbye, everyone.
Bye.